We begin our epic journey in Lindisfarne, island of saints and angels, and cycle across the frontiers of Europe to the 7 cities mentioned in the Book of Revelation. I'm not only an enthusiastic cycle tourist, but I'm also an avid reader of books. Libraries are my universities. Books drive the wheels of my cycle. In preparation for this documentary, I spent many weeks researching the 7 cities in the British Library and evaluating the latest research on archaeology. So what of the Book of Revelation? The year is AD 95, and the prophet John has been exiled to the tiny island of Patmos. Here he receives a series of bizarre visions that constitute the Bible's climatic book. Imagine Salvador Dali sketching a graphic novel. That's Revelation. A book that has to be visualized and imagined. The book is weird, surreal, epic, and totally engrossing. You'd be forgiven for wondering if John had been supplementing his diet on the wrong kind of mushrooms. Fortunately, our job is not to decode Revelation, but to visit the churches and interpret Christ's message for today.
8 years ago, we cycled the 7 ancient cities which are in Western Turkey, or the 7 ancient cities of the apocalypse. And we first had the idea to make the documentary, or an adventure. And then we cycled from London to Istanbul, and the idea grew even stronger.
So this is going to be the ultimate pilgrimage. We'll be cycling thousands of miles through a number of different countries, arriving at Turkey and trying to hear if God is speaking to us today through these messages. That's the deal. Are you up for it?
Let's go.
Yep. Go, go, go.
Go.
Woo. The bride faithful had fallen out of love. When love hemorrhages from the church, all that is left is a cold, austere orthodoxy. Right on every point of doctrine. Wrong on every aspiration of the heart. The death of love is a death of life.
Andy's a character, isn't he? I mean, look, he's falling asleep next to the fire.
I mean, obviously, if I was a Christian, I'd do the honourable thing and wake him up, but from a comedy perspective, I don't think he'd burn a lot. I think it'd be just 3rd-degree burns.
That's fine, no problem.
No, he'd be fine. He's got to this age and survived. He's crazy.
Goodness me, do you know what? I'm not sure if he's mad or genius.
I'm rich, I prospered, I don't need a thing. Christ's verdict on the church was very different. He fires 5 pejorative adjectives into this arrogant church. You do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. These words constitute the most damning indictment in Scripture. Christ doesn't condemn this church for any blatant wickedness. The elders are not encouraging the members to party at guild banquets. There's no hint of impropriety. On the contrary, the Laodicean Christians are respectable, hard-working folk. No scandal here. If we were compiling a good church's guide, we would give Laodicea Christian Fellowship a 5-star rating. So why Christ's savage attack? I can understand him hitting out a Jezebel and her swingers, and Balaam at his sex and greed-fueled buddies. But why pick on these harmless folk? The answer is in the water. This was a tragedy of the Laodicean church. These Christians were passionless, loveless, colourless, graceless, apathetic, syrupy sweet, and totally phony. In a word, lukewarm. They made Christ sick. When they looked at their reflections in the tepid water, smug, self-satisfied faces looked back at them.
I was just going to go to the shop and buy a normal bike, and then this Andy guy started showing me more expensive bikes, more, and I'll be honest, I can barely afford to eat, and then he says he's taking me to a monastery where they give you food, and it's actually derelict, so I don't know what to do.
Henry V, immortalised in Shakespeare's play of the same name, smashed a flower of French chivalry at Agincourt with a ragtag army of English longbowmen, infantry and cavalry. Henry's speech before the battle celebrates the power and camaraderie of a committed few. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. Ultimately, it is not the size and prestige of a church that counts, but the vision, faith, and commitment of the people. Never, never underestimate the power of the committed, tenacious few. Such people change a world. We were in Bulgaria, and we couldn't find a source of water to wash, so for a week we didn't wash. We slept, it was so cold we had to sleep in all our clothes.
Sleep in what?
We had to sleep in all our clothes because it was so cold. Sometimes we were sleeping under the stars. So the only way you could keep warm was to put every article of clothing on, get into your sleeping bag, and then you might get some sleep. We thought, well, we need to get some refreshment after this. So we turned up at this rough Bulgarian coffee joint, which was just a shed. So I went in there and sat down, and I smelled every single member of the team coming
Before you could see them.
into that shack. They came in, and the aroma shot in before them. And when we were sitting there, everybody left.
I remember that.
Christ summarizes the condition of the church in Sardis in one stark, uncompromising statement. You have a name that you are living, but are dead. It's a gorgeous Turkish morning, but the words of Jesus send a shiver down my spine. Like city, like church. Sardis had a reputation for municipal splendor and wealth, but its pomp and glory days were behind it. Similarly, the church in Sardis had a reputation for life, but it was an empty facade. The church in Sardis was the church of the living dead. If I'm cycling, I can think about God and pray to Him. I don't have to be in a building. And this journey that we're making to the 7 churches is significant because it's more than a physical journey. We're going to find out what God is saying. Queen Jezebel, Ahab's Machiavellian wife, was Israel's Cruella de Vil. Get in her way and she'd kill you. Israel's ancestral faith was much too difficult for her, so she decided to upgrade. Her solution was to combine the religion with the sex cult of Baal Malquart. The amalgam of 2 opposing worldviews and moralities was rather like patching Andy Warhol's pop art frog on Leonardo's iconic Mona Lisa. a total mismatch. Jezebel of Thyatira campaigned for a similar modification of the gospel. I'm tremendously excited to be here. All around me, the stones are whispering. If we could hear them, they would tell stories that go back for 3,000 years. Christ reveals himself to the church in Pergamum as a warrior emperor who holds in his right hand 7 stars, and from his mouth goes a sharp, double-edged sword. Christ warns the church in Smyrna that they're about to endure 10 days of persecution. 10 is a symbolic number signifying that the persecution will be savage but short. A hurricane that hits the land with enormous destructive force but passes swiftly. Christ doesn't commiserate or mollycoddle. This is not a church in therapy. They have conscripted into an army, and they know that death, suffering, and hardship are part of the deal. Join us on our epic journey.